Welcome to the Practice Autonomy Podcast with Dr. Chris Griffin, your playbook for building an independent and profitable dental practice. Each episode, you'll hear proven systems, strategies, and stories that help you protect one main thing as a private practice dentist: your freedom. Now here's your host, Dr. Chris Griffin.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Chris Griffin. Welcome back to the Practice Autonomy Podcast. And hey guys, I am absolutely one of you for sure this week, feeling your pain. For a long time, it hadn't happened to me, even though I knew it was coming. Back in 2012, I believe I gave a lecture in Dallas, Texas called The Coming Storm, where I outlined just exactly where I thought things were going with the insurance markets and corporate dentistry markets, and how insurance would just continue to squeeze us with their PPO participation and not raising any yearly maximums, and not raising fees or lowering fees in some cases, or just raising them minimally, and how that eventually they would also not only stop paying as much, but then start squeezing people and trying to fight all the reimbursements altogether. And I'll be, if that's not exactly what's happening. And so we've all got that to deal with every day. And that's just part of it, I guess, these days. I don't know why organized dentistry hasn't been able to fend that off, but it hasn't happened. And so that's a tough one we have to deal with all the time. But corporate dentistry, you could see it coming. I guess that was now 13 years ago. They were building momentum, building steam. And yeah. And we've been pretty insulated here in our little hamlet, but we were finally raided almost felt like a Viking raid on our dental practice this past week. And I've said for a long time, the reason I hate corporate dentistry, it's not the people that are working in the corporate offices. I've got some of my best friends that make a great living working in corporate offices. And it's not the employees. It's goodness knows it's not their fault. They're being offered these ridiculous sums to go to corporate dental offices. That's not their fault in any way. Hey, good for them. But it's just the principle, guys. I mean, we're out here, we've done all the risk of building a huge practice, building a building practice. In my case, we've had to rebuild the practice a couple of times, once from a fire that burned it down and kept us from being able to practice for 16 months where we practice, so you do all that and you still pay your employees what the practice management gurus would say is above what you should have for a payroll expense. And sometimes still that's just not quite good enough. It reminds me a lot of the current college football landscape, right? Where, a school could get someone out of high school that hasn't developed, and they could develop a player and let them use their weight room and feed them the right nutrition and put them on a great program and build them up for a year. And then the player gets better and better, and they play for that school as a freshman and maybe as a sophomore. And then, they actually start to turn out to be really, really good. Even though the school was taking a big risk by getting this kid out of a small little, 2A, 3A high school and building them up, the kid could have never panned out, but they did pan out. And then after they have a great sophomore year, well, guess what? The big bad universities that have the most money come in and offer them, hey, I'm going to offer you $3 million to sit on the bench. I mean, what's the student athlete supposed to do, right? I guess they'd be almost crazy not to take it. That's how it feels. That feels wrong to me. If you like college athletics, that just feels wrong. Well, that's exactly what's happening in dentistry right now. You can develop someone straight out of school and feel like you've done everything for them. And, as far as everybody's happy and you feel like you're paying a reasonable wage. Guess what? The thing about corporate dentistry that just irks me to no end, and I know it's a gray line, but there's got to be some demarcation between like a large practice, single location that has multiple doctors, a group practice. That's one thing. And hey, if you're a doctor and you want a few locations, 2 or 3 locations, hey, that's still, in my mind, you're a doctor, you're sort of in charge of all that. That's good. But then when you get these companies that they have just tons of locations and they have staff running around and staff in one location are maybe being managed by administrator that's got 2 or 3 offices, and it's not even a dentist. And, you know, a lot of times they're not even turning a profit. That's what's so crazy to me, is that you have venture capital companies, equity companies that'll come in and they just want to own a practice and say that they have so much revenue so they can fold practices together and sell them to someone else in private equity, venture capital. And to me, it's just not what dentistry is supposed to be about. I guess I'm a dinosaur. Fine. Call me a dinosaur. I'm a dinosaur. But I just hate that. I just want to have the glory days of a dentist in a location seeing his patients or her patients. I mean, that's the dream. And I don't know where the line cuts off between that dream and corporate dentistry, whatever that means, DSOs or whatever. But when it gets to where a dentist can't manage their staff and their patients, I think that's kind of the line. And, I just think it's unfair, uncool, whatever, that a company that's not even really trying to make a healthy profit as a healthy company is just wanting to exchange money with other venture capital firms, and they can just come in and offer people whatever, like offer them $3 million to sit on the bench, just like in college football, right? And just to hurt the other practice, or just to have options, and they just don't care. So I hate it. I really hate it. If you're listening to this, you may hate it too. So if you're in corporate dentistry, don't hate you, but man, I hate that system. But anyway, what I'm going to do for this podcast is I'm going to throw it to the AI podcast team. And I wrote an article in, I think 2015 about the death of the local dentist. And I'm going to have them discuss that in my lecture from 2012 about the coming storm in dentistry, and compare that to where they think things are currently in our current dental landscape, and what can we do about it. We'll see if they have any ideas better than me. So throwing it off to the team. Here you go, guys.
Okay, so let's dive in here. We're looking at something pretty interesting today. It's kind of like opening a time capsule, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. A time capsule of, well, maybe fear from the world of private dentistry.
Exactly. And checking if these prophecies from back then actually panned out. The theme really feels bigger than just dentistry, though. It's about scale, regulation, these big forces.
That's right. And our sources are fascinating. We've got this material from around 2011 from Dr. Griffin.
Right.
He gave a lecture, wrote a blog post, basically warning that the good times, the golden age for private practice dentists, the image of the untouchable high earner, coming to an end.
And people back then, they didn't really buy it, or maybe thought it was a bit much.
Not universally, no. I think many felt he was maybe exaggerating, or just plain wrong.
Okay, so our mission here is to take those specific warnings from 11 and, well, hold them up against the 2025 data you've got on corporate dentistry, insurance pressures, see how it stacks up.
And the core idea back then was this two-sided squeeze on the independent dentist.
Right, yeah, exactly. Like a pincer movement. On one side, you've got regulations, government control.
And on the other, the sheer scale and economic power of corporate dentistry.
So the big question is, did that fear become fact?
Well, as the data suggests, it looks chillingly accurate. Let's look at the signs Dr. Griffin saw way back in 2011.
What were the first clues?
Even by 2009, 2010, the positive trends were stalling out. Things like dentist net income, gross billings, even retirement confidence was dipping.
So the boom years were clearly over by then.
Definitely felt like it. The easy growth phase seemed finished.
And that first side of the squeeze, the regulatory one, the lecturer called it the left hook. What was the specific threat there?
The prediction was that government would start treating dentistry more like it treated medicine. And they pointed to examples, like how physician incomes dropped in places like Mississippi back in the 90s after certain changes.
Okay, so learning from what happened in medicine.
Right. And a key part of that was this idea of losing professional exclusivity. The worry was about mid-level providers, like dental therapists. The prediction was they'd become normalized, maybe even get federal funding or support, and once you have a lower-cost provider doing some procedures.
The leverage of the fully qualified DDS or DMD, it goes down.
Right.
In terms of income.
Exactly. That was the fear. But it wasn't just about who does the procedures. There was also this death by compliance idea.
Yeah, tell me about that. That sounds ominous. It wasn't just about new provider types.
No, not at all. It was about the increasing burden of rules and regulations, especially after the Affordable Care Act.
How so?
Well, a really specific point was that if a dentist accepted any government money, maybe just a little bit from Medicaid or CHIP,
Okay.
suddenly the entire practice fell under the federal anti-kickback statute, and the rules got way stricter. Ignorance wasn't a defense anymore.
Wow. So like things that used to be normal practice.
Exactly. Maybe giving a small gift card for a patient referral. That could theoretically become a federal issue. The warning was that small, independent practices just weren't set up to handle that kind of intense compliance environment. The risk was huge.
That's a massive shift. So the ACA wasn't just about insurance coverage. It kind of weaponized bureaucracy against the little guys if they took any federal funds.
That was certainly the interpretation and the warning given back then. And this regulatory tightening, it was apparently helped along by trying to change how the public saw dentists.
How do you mean?
The sources mention efforts to paint dentists as, well, as greedy. They pointed to things like that PBS Frontline show, Dollars and Dentists.
I remember that.
And news stories claiming ERs were full because dentists wouldn't treat poor patients, shifting the cost to taxpayers.
Ah, the classic creative villain strategy. Make the public believe dentists are the problem.
And then suddenly, regulating their fees or bringing in those lower-cost mid-level providers seems like the logical, politically easy solution.
Okay, so that's the storm brewing on the government and regulatory side. The left hook.
Precisely. But then there's the other punch the right hook. Pure economics and corporate scale.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. Because the analysis back then pinpointed student debt as the fuel.
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
By 2011, you had new grads coming out owing, what, $200,000, $250,000? Sometimes more.
Yeah, huge numbers.
And if you factor in maybe buying a house, other life costs, you're easily looking at $500,000 in total debt.
So the idea was, who's going to borrow another $500,000 to $1 million to start a practice from scratch?
Exactly. The prediction wasn't that they couldn't, but that they'd choose not to take that risk. They'd opt for a predictable salary, lower personal risk.
Which means working for
either a government clinic, maybe, or more likely these growing corporate dental chains. Student debt basically became a recruitment engine for DSOs.
Just to clarify for listeners, DSO means Dental Support Organization. These are the corporate groups managing multiple offices. But student debt is high in lots of fields. Why specifically dentistry DSOs?
Well, it's about the alternative. For a solo dentist, starting up means taking all the financial risk. Equipment, marketing, staffing, everything.
Right.
The DSOs could offer a salary, benefits, and crucially, they removed that massive startup gamble for the individual dentist. Plus, they had structural advantages even then.
Like what?
Things like centralized marketing. One campaign covers 20 offices, bulk purchasing power for supplies, lab work. Sometimes they even bought their own labs.
The economies of scale, basically.
Definitely. And systems. This is important. Solo docs often run on their own style, improvisation.
Sure.
But DSOs, hiring lots of new grads and needing to scale fast, they had to create really tight, repeatable systems for everything. Efficiency over artistry, you might say.
High throughput. Makes sense.
Yeah. And the final warning from 2011 is about the retail-ification of dentistry. Look at what happened to pharmacists mostly in chains now. Optometrists often in big vision centers. Banks moving into supermarkets.
Convenience wins.
That was the argument. Dentistry isn't magically immune. The prediction was Walmart-style convenience would come to dentistry, and Americans almost always choose convenience. They even mentioned Walmart dental clinics already popping up back then.
Okay, wow. So that was the forecast from 2011. Debt pushing grads to corporates, corporates using scale and systems, all wrapped in this expectation of retail convenience.
A pretty potent combination.
Right. So let's fast forward. We've got the 2025 data here. Did that engine get built? How does the corporate prediction hold up?
It wasn't just build, host, speaker. It seems like it's hitting overdrive. The DSO consolidation is accelerating dramatically.
Send me some numbers.
Okay, so DSO affiliation among all U.S. dentists went from around 9% in 2017 to 13% by 2022. That's significant growth.
Okay.
But here's the kicker. Look at new graduates. Their affiliation rate is now over 27%.
27%? That's huge. That confirms the student debt prediction perfectly.
It really does. The sources link it directly. Younger dentists, facing average student debt now over $300,000, are actively seeking that predictable income, that lower risk.
And the sector overall, the DSO market.
The estimates are pretty staggering. From around $38 billion in 2024, it's projected to hit maybe $190 billion by 2034.
Wow, that's not just growth. That's like a hostile takeover of the market landscape.
It's a major, major shift. Now, let's look at the other side of that predicted squeeze, the insurance pressure. Does the 2025 data back that up too?
What's the story with PPOs? That's the Preferred Provider Organization networks, right? The dental insurance plans.
Yeah, and the data says the pressure cooker is absolutely boiling over. Low reimbursement rates and dealing with insurance companies are now the top business threats cited by dentists. Over half list them.
Why is it such a threat now?
Because operating costs, supplies, wages, rent, they're going up much faster than insurance payments are. Inflation is hitting practices hard.
So costs are rising, but income from insurance isn't keeping pace.
Not even close. Just to tread water, just to maintain their margins, an independent dentist probably needs to raise fees maybe 6 or 7% this year.
Okay.
But get this. The data shows that between 2022 and 2023, about a third of dentists actually saw their insurance reimbursements go down.
Go down. Well, their costs are inflating. That's unsustainable.
Exactly. The solo practice model, with its relatively high fixed costs, it just isn't built for that kind of environment. The runway runs out fast.
Which explains why we're seeing dentists drop insurance plans.
It does. The sources say about 23% of dentists dropped at least one PPO plan in 2024, and another third are planning to drop more. They explicitly cite unsustainable reimbursement.
So if we tie this all together, the 2011 predictions seem to be converging, right?
It looks that way. You have insurance companies keeping rates flat or low. This puts immense pressure on the small, independent practices.
Stars them out almost.
Which, in turn, makes consolidation under the DSO umbrella look more attractive, or even necessary for survival. DSOs, with their scale, their purchasing power, their systems, they're just better optimized to survive in a low-fee world.
So the PPO pressure actually fuels the DSO growth. The two hooks work together.
That seems to be the dynamic playing out. The 2011 prediction that corporate groups would thrive precisely because the low-fee environment crushed solo practices. Well, it seems to have happened.
Okay, so the storm definitely arrived. The predictions were spot on. But the 2011 lecture wasn't just doom and gloom, was it? Was there advice? A counterpunch?
Yes, absolutely. It wasn't just a warning. It included a strategy for survival for the independent dentist.
What was the starting point for that?
It started with a reality check about retirement. Even back then, the idea that you could just sell your practice and fund a big chunk of your retirement that was already fading.
Can't rely on the exit anymore.
Right. The conclusion was stark. Your practice has to generate wealth while you own it. You need to control profitability day to day, year to year.
Okay, so how do you do that? What was the blueprint?
It boiled down to 3 pillars, basically. Ways to fight back against both the regulatory squeeze and the corporate scale advantage.
Pillar 1.
Get bigger. Not necessarily in physical size, but in terms of patient flow. Build reliable, systemized ways to attract new patients from multiple sources.
Don't just rely on referrals or one marketing channel.
Exactly. Have high-trust referrals? Yes. But also paid marketing. A strong online presence. Control your demand so you're never desperate for those low-paying PPO or government plan patients.
Makes sense. Control the faucet. Pillar 2.
Get faster.
Yeah.
This is all about efficiency and capacity. When margins are thin, you need throughput. Track everything. How long do procedures take? Train staff relentlessly, not just for quality, but for speed and predictability. Replace improvisation with repeatable, optimized systems for setups, for workflows.
The source mentioned something about mannequins.
Yeah, apparently using things like analyzing movements with mannequins to literally shave off wasted seconds, eliminate unnecessary steps, hyper-focus on efficiency.
Okay. Bigger flow, faster work. What's pillar 3?
Get stronger. This means team alignment. Front office, back office, clinical team, everyone on the same page, same philosophy, one agreed way of doing things.
Why is that so important against corporates?
Because the DSO's main weapon is systems. The independent practice's counter is better systems combined with agility.
Ah, the agility factor.
Right. The solo or small group practice can pivot much faster. Decide to add a new service next week. Just do it. Maintain that high-trust local connection that big corporations often struggle with. Better systems plus nimbleness. That's the mode.
So let's recap this whole journey from 2011 to now.
Okay. The coming storm predicted back in 2011 It seems to have been remarkably accurate, validated by the 2025 data we've seen.
The key drivers were high student debt, creating a willing workforce for corporate models,
Combined with PPO insurance pressures that squeeze the margins of traditional solo practices.
allowing DSOs, built for scale and efficiency, to consolidate the market.
Pretty much sums it up. The two predicted forces worked in tandem.
And the survival advice from back then still seems incredibly relevant today.
It really does. The core message for an independent dentist is you can't just be a good clinician anymore. You have to run the practice like a serious, well-managed, system-driven business.
To stay faster, more trusted, more nimble than the big players.
That seems to be the only path to sustained independence.
Dr. Griffin apparently closed that original lecture with a pretty stark choice.
Yeah, it was something like, you can fight and do the things we talked about, or you can give up and go work for a corporation or the government. A bit blunt, maybe.
But it resonates, doesn't it? So for you listening, maybe you're seeing similar trends in your own field. This pressure from scale and regulation.
It makes you think, doesn't it? What systems are you building in your own professional life right now to protect your independence, your value, against those same kinds of consolidating forces? That's the question that lingers long after the storm hits.
Well, that's a spirited debate. And so I hope you guys got a lot out of that, different perspective maybe from what just the way that I put things. So I hope you guys got something enjoyable out of that. Maybe you learned a little something. I'll tell you what I'm going to do moving forward. Yeah, of course, I'm all about, I love 3D printing and having your own in-house lab. I do love that. And hey, we've got some cool things coming down the pike on how you can make things patients really like a lot cheaper. So maybe you can do more of them and that helps your bottom line. But I am really, really, really going to get back on the horse of how to build your practice more productively, more efficiently. So maybe we have some tools in the toolbox to combat these corporate offices. You just got to believe if you have a skilled dentist that's running a very efficient, productive office, then you should have more options to fight off these DSO Viking raiders, right? So anyway, that's what we'll be focusing on moving forward for the time being. So glad you guys could join us. Hope you have a great week and reach out to us if you guys have any thoughts, concerns, questions, and I'll try to work them into the next show. All right, we'll see you guys next time.